All right, so G1, most important checkpoint because we're checking for cell size, growth factors, if that needs to stop or start, and DNA damage, okay, which can happen from things in the environment, and we don't want to make copies of damaged cells, okay? So, if the cell gets the go signal, it keeps going and goes through the entire cell cycle, and you're going to get 2 daughter cells. If the cell gets the stop signal, it's going to enter this quiet stage, okay, a non-dividing stage, sometimes called G0, and it's just going to kind of sit there, steady state, doing its job, okay? Remember, cells don't just divide, they have lots of other things they do. Okay, pacing okay over there? Thank you, guys. Everybody at home keeping up? All right, that's going to be a mystery question since I got nothing in the chat. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about G0, okay? Some cells stay in G0 forever, and I've been kind of like hinting that nerve cells, muscle cells are the same way, are like this, okay? So if you're kind of like reading this and saying like, well, I guess I'll stop going to lifetime since I can't get any more muscle, you grow more fibers within the cell, okay? Muscle cells are also multinucleated, so your muscles actually like make more proteins, but the cell number stays steady, okay? So it seems a little counterintuitive, but it can happen. The cool thing is once you build that muscle up, it does stay with you, okay? So get swole while you're young. You'll be healthier when you're old, because other things when you work out, your body grows more blood vessels to circulate more oxygen to your muscles. So good stuff happens. Don't read this and say, might as well, yeah. Yes, okay. Question was asked in class, is that what hypertrophy means? And that is basically growing more muscle fibers, okay? Which is, the opposite is atrophy, which is where you're kind of like if you're starving to death, or if you're bedridden and you never use your muscles will shrink. So yes, okay. A lot of times you'll see people who are like wheelchair bound and their legs are really, really small because they never use them. That's atrophy, okay? You can reverse it, but if you're permanently paralyzed or something, you're going to need physical therapy to keep those joints moving, or else they'll just lock up. Okay, good questions, good questions. All right, now some cells we can at times have them re-enter the cell cycle, okay? So certain events in life will cause these to turn back on, okay? So they can go dormant, then we're gonna need them, so we can have different things happen. All right, another major checkpoint is your G2 checkpoint, okay? Your G2 checkpoint, let's talk about it. It wants to check that DNA synthesis went the way it should have, okay? It's going to check that DNA copy job happened the right way. Yes?
I don't know if it's just me, but everything's frozen, and I can't see that you moved on yet. I'm stuck at the G0.
Anybody? Wait, Jordan, what'd you say? You're there, where are you at?
Yeah, you're like frozen too. I can only hear your voice, and I can't see you move, neither can I see the slideshow move.
You may have to refresh for me, it wasn't fine.
All right, listen, I'm going to pause and let anyone who's stuck do a refresh, okay? and check in with me after your refresh. Please stand by. Let's let him come back. Jordan, how about now? Okay, no problem.
I think it's good now. I don't know.
You should see go. Am I moving?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
No.
How about this? Do you see the stop?
No, it's okay. You can keep going. I can just watch this lecture later.
I hate for that to happen.
It's okay. It's okay.
Is how many? I really need to know in the chat if you're good or you're frozen. Give me a G or an F in the chat. Good.
Are you stuck on his presentation, or are you stuck on him himself on the actual movie? Because if you pin him, it's slow, but if you look at the presentation, it's keeping up.
Everything's frozen. But it's okay. I'll just watch the lecture later and just say that it's fine.
Hey Jordan, if you stop playing Fortnite, you probably have more bandwidth. You know.
Oh my god, I really don't even play. What?
I saw you on the leaderboard. All right, now listen. Let's go ahead and go here. Thank you, Jordan, for being flexible. Okay, where are we at? So at the G2 checkpoint, we're checking to make sure the synthesis phase went through correctly. So at this point, you should have a copy of each chromosome, and you should be ready for that to proceed, okay? If this doesn't go right, the cell will say, hey, let's try to fix this before we go any further. If it can't fix it, the cell will do sort of like, the cell will die on purpose, okay? Your body's going to say, hey, this cell is broken. We don't want to make any more of this thing. So apoptosis is the word you're looking for there. So we want to basically stop cell reproduction by killing the cell. And this is the nice thing about having a whole bunch of cells, okay? You kill one, no big deal. Others are going to pick up the slack, okay? So most of you have heard of that term, but it is another term. This is a very terminology thick unit. So hopefully you're practicing, you're looking at that. We got a little practice for you today. All right. Next, we have the M checkpoint, okay? Some people call the spindle checkpoint. The purpose of this checkpoint is to make sure that microtubules have attached to each chromosome at the kinetochore. Okay, what is all that? Okay, so you probably remember chromosomes and these microtubules reaching out to attach. Okay, if that's not happening, we're not going to send the right number of chromosomes to the two daughter cells, and we can get some weird things happening. You could have an extra chromosome in your cell, which that's going to result in things called trisomy, okay? And people with Down syndrome, that's one of that is the cause of it, okay? So having that extra chromosome can lead to some problems. Okay, if all the microtubules are connected and things are happening correctly, the cell gets the go signal. Okay, so let's just pause for a minute. What's the major theme of the stop and go? They're basically like, is everything okay? Okay, they are checkpoints to make sure everything is okay. If these checkpoints do not work, cells can make bad copies of themselves, and we can get into things called cancer. Okay, so this is sort of a feedback where if the cell doesn't have a connection, it stops, okay? And it might never get a connection, or maybe it sorts itself out and things can proceed. This is really complex on the biochemical level. It's way over my head, so we're just barely scratching the surface. All right. Any better, Jordan?
No, I haven't even seen the part where you say go and stop. I just hear your voice, so.
Jordan, why don't you why don't you go open up the slides and follow along that way? So head for the Monday, Tuesday folder, and you can just kind of open the PDF of the slides and ignore the video, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, moving on. Or am I good to move on? Okay. Okay, so there's also some internal cell regulators controlled by proteins called cyclins. Okay, cyclins are made and degraded and broken down at very well-defined points of the cell cycle. Okay? All right, we're going to start getting into some thick technical information here. Okay? So these are regulated by enzymes called Cyclin-Dependent Kinases. Now, you can see why we abbreviate this as Cdks, okay? So, during every phase of the cell cycle, the concentration of these is at some threshold. And as long as those are present at that threshold, you guys know what a threshold is, like a level, okay? As long as they are present at that level, that segment of the cell cycle will proceed, okay? It will be active. All right. Everybody okay? So, this table right here represents the concentration of specific types of Cdks, okay? So I'm never going to ask you to memorize this. I just want you to know that there is a regulatory mechanism, okay? What happens with these enzymes is they phosphorylate different proteins that regulate the events, okay? So if these are not present, that cycle will stop. So if anything goes wrong with these, if the concentration is too low, the cells won't grow. If the concentration won't shut off, the cells won't stop growing. So as long as these proteins are activated by the enzyme, that particular phase will proceed or become active. And you can see that there's overlap. You can see that there's buildup. Like D is kind of there the whole time. E spikes right before the S phase and drops off quickly. A and B kind of build up slowly from the beginning and drop suddenly. Never have to memorize, but I just want you to understand that CDKs are regulators that allow this to happen, okay? Allow mitosis, the cell cycle, to happen. Okay. There are other things outside the cell, okay, that stimulate cell growth. These are usually hormones, okay? Sometimes these can be abused, okay? You got people that go to the gym, try to take testosterone, try to take HGH. Anyone heard of those? Human growth hormone, okay? And so what they're trying to do is turn on these pathways artificially. Of course, there are side effects, bad things that can happen. Don't mess around with that, people. Don't mess around with that. Okay? There are other cells that recognize contact, so there's different ways this can happen. And once you get a key number of cells, growth will stop. The inside of your mouth grows that way. So the lining of your mouth, if you scrape cells away, they're going to grow back until they get back to a normal amount. So if you go eat a bunch of Captain Crunch, scrape the roof of your mouth off, pineapple, right? Me and my wife traveled to Australia years ago and had really good pineapple there, and she ate so much it like tore the inside of her mouth apart. She couldn't eat anymore. So I'm more of the oops, all berries got kind of, you know. All right. How we doing at home? Sticking with me? Give me a G for go or a W for wait. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. The third type of external regulation is how many other cells that they are attached to. Okay? You're going to see this in connective tissue. Okay? So things like ligaments, tendons, and bones. Okay? In broken bone, you see anchorage dependence. The bone is going to heal until it reaches contact with a critical number of other cells. Once they reach the threshold of contact, they stop dividing. Have you guys seen this disease where people's bones, when they bruise or bump, I cannot remember the name of the disease. Kids presented on it in my anatomy class all the time. But every time they get like a bump on their bone, it'll grow like a big projection off their bone. I cannot remember the name of the disease, but these people kind of like grow all this extra. This is broken in these people. Yeah, literally. I don't know. It's a pretty horrible way to go because your skeleton kind of like connects to itself and you can't move anymore. So like, yeah, it's not, you know, the living unicorn. It's more, it's pretty terrible. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and go. All right. We've kind of been hinting about cancer, so let's talk about. So, normal healthy cells become cancerous due to some sort of DNA mutation. Now, these are usually cumulative, okay? This is why, if you smoke one cigarette, you're probably not going to get cancer, okay? If you smoke a pack a day, the effects are going to build up, okay? We know that tobacco use damages DNA, okay? And for all you people that are, marijuana is all natural. Well, tobacco is too. It's a plant, okay? So let's be careful out there. All right, so cancer cells have usually accumulated 60 mutations, okay? Now that's an average, so don't get too, I have 59, I'm safe. Like, let's not be. All right, so these mutations add up until the point where these checkpoints are broken. Okay, so let's take a look at some differences between cancer cells and normal cells, okay? Normal cells follow the traffic lights we've been talking about. When things are told to stop, they stop. When they're told to start, they start. If you throw normal cells into a petri dish that's got all the things the cell needs, okay? We can take your cells, put them in a dish, tell them to grow, keep them warm, and feed them. That's what everybody wants for Valentine's Day, just like these cells. All right. They'll grow about 20 to 50 times, okay? If there's mistakes, they die on purpose. Apoptosis, die on purpose. Okay? Cancer cells don't follow the checkpoints. They never stop dividing. Okay? Some people call these cells immortal. The individual cells aren't immortal, but they keep copying themselves. You've probably, what book am I going to mention next? You guys have heard of it? Henrietta Lacks. Anybody ever heard of that? Okay, maybe you haven't. There's a woman. Her name's Henrietta Lacks. She had a cell that they took out of her body and they turned it over to research institutions. Usually when you have surgery, you sign lots of paperwork. And somewhere in there is, we can take your cells and use them for stuff. Okay? And so her cells are now all over the world being used for cancer research. She died, of course. And there's this book about her called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. It's been made into a movie as well. I don't know what streaming service it's on, but I think Oprah is in it. And it kind of tells her story, how her family feels like these cells were taken without her permission, but she did sign away that they could do that during surgery. So it's like there's two sides of the issue. They basically just want her to be recognized. I don't know if they want some financial stuff or not. I've never actually sat down and read the book cover to cover. But a lot of biology teachers will make their students read it. Okay? I don't think we have time for that this year. But if you can watch the movie version, I'd encourage you to do that. Let me know how it is. Okay. Other things cancer cells do is they skip apoptosis. That's why they're immortal. Now, this is very simplified. And there are different types of cancers for different organs that happen at different ways than these basic 3 or 4 things here. But cancer treatments are usually awful because we're trying to stop cell growth. So some of that always tends to spill over to the healthy cells. And the side effects of chemotherapy can be pretty devastating because we stop your normal cells from dividing. Okay? So, let's just talk about this for a minute from a societal point of view. Okay? Right now, we have COVID, we have a vaccine. I want you to rewind before COVID. How many of you have heard of celebrities or people or whatever saying, we don't get vaccines, or vaccines are bad, okay? So anti-vaxxers, whatever you want to call them, there are certain people who are undergoing chemotherapy or have other diseases where their immune system doesn't work, okay? If we all get vaccinated, we eliminate things like smallpox, measles, all these diseases that you guys have never heard of. When I was a kid, everybody got chickenpox. Now that one's pretty much gone, okay? So you vaccinating are allowing these people who are undergoing chemotherapy to not die, okay? So it's kind of like something you do for your own health, but it also affects society at large. So someone you never even know may have chemotherapy and have a weakened immune system because let's say they have, I don't know, leukemia, okay? And they're on chemotherapy, it turns off their immune system, okay? So it's important that as a society, we vaccinate to protect the weakest people in the population who medically cannot get the vaccine, okay? Who are these people? They are people who are HIV positive, okay? They are people who, like I said, have some sort of cancer treatment. They are people who've had an organ transplant. If you have someone else's liver in your body, or whatever, you have to take drugs that lower the effectiveness of your immune system so that your own immune system doesn't attack the donated organ. So all these people who are like, yeah, I'm not vaccinating because I've heard everything from like autism to microchips, okay? They are going to kill people accidentally. I'm sure these people have the best intentions, but we have to like look at this as a public health issue and not as much as an individual issue, okay? This is a very individualized country. I do what's right for me. I decide what's right and wrong for me. I get that. Freedom is an awesome thing, okay? But when we get below a certain number of people getting vaccinated, these things will start moving through the population again, okay? So we're talking about the COVID vaccine reaching what everyone calls herd immunity. That has to be like in the 80% before it stops, okay? So until 80% of people get vaccinated and it's 80% effective, we're going to see the spread of COVID continue, okay? We're probably going to be wearing these for quite a while because there is no vaccine for people under 18 right now, okay? So I know they're all like, we're supposed to start getting vaccinated on February 1st. I don't think they're going to get us all on day one, but you guys will still be, you know, just because Mr. Sater is vaccinated, there are more of you out there. It's not going to be like the teachers are vaccinated, throw the mask away, okay? Sadly, we're probably going to be in these things in graduation and maybe even the start of next year, okay? And I'm tired of wearing it too, okay? But, you know, it's just, this is the new. All right, I'm going to stop for a second there off vaccines. All right, the Johnson & Johnson one is coming, and you only need one shot. I signed up to be a vaccine in the trials, but they haven't called me yet. Well, I wasn't doing it for the money. I think they pay you a little bit to like, here's some gas money. It's not like, hey, let's go buy. And we do have a lot of vaccine hesitancy. People feel like this one was rushed, but you know, it was rushed, but it still went through all the proper, you know, trials. Yeah, it really is. It really is cool, and I think it's going to have profound medical implications. All right, enough about my little sidebar, but you know, every once in a while I get parents or students who are like, well, you shouldn't be teaching about vaccines. That's controversial. I'm sorry, it's not. They work, okay? What's happened is people grew up years and years and years ago without them, and we've lived so long without all these horrible diseases that it's not in society's memory on what polio was like, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get back to cancer. Okay. Some terms you need to know. An uncontrollable growth of cancer cells leads to what we call a tumor. And a tumor is a mass of abnormal cells. Okay? Now, these guys can be divided into two categories. Benign, okay? In a benign tumor, they stay in one spot. A lot of skin cancers is benign. We can just come by and kind of scoop it out. If you ever watch a pimple popper, every once in a while they'll find the little benign skin problems. Okay? Then there are malignant tumors. Okay? These ones lose their anchorage. Okay? Think of a tumor as they're holding together. If it's benign, they kind of are anchored together. If it's malignant, they can spread. And the medical word for spreading is metastasize. Okay? How does it get around your body? Either through your bloodstream or through your lymphatic system. Okay? Lymphatic system is kind of like the cousin of the circulatory system. It kind of sucks up all the fluid from when you're infected. If you ever had like an infection, your doctor will kind of like feel your neck. They're looking for swollen lymph nodes that kind of collect all the gunk from your infection. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about how to prevent cancer. What's the number one cancer in young people? Skin cancer. Okay? Tanning beds are like cigarettes for your skin. So if you're like, ooh, I got to go to prom and look brown, please. Yeah, spray it on. Okay? All right. So cancer can affect anyone, but there's things we can do that lower our risk. And cancer is hereditary. It can run in different families. So really watch that. Sometimes, especially breast cancer, okay, can really run in families. First one, don't smoke. That includes cigarettes, vapes, pipes, water pipes, marijuana. What else am I missing? What else can you smoke? Crack. All right. Yeah, no meth or crack, guys, okay? And most people are considering these pretty nasty habits. It's harder to get life insurance, okay? Next, eat healthier foods and drink water. This doesn't mean you can never go out and have a steak dinner, but if all you eat are hot dogs and bacon, not good, okay? Drink water. Water allows your body to clean itself out. Most Americans are chronically dehydrated, okay? I will say wearing a mask all the time is making it harder to stay hydrated. I see someone picking up a water bottle over there. Yay. All right, stay hydrated. Next, Young people especially, pale people especially, ginger redheads especially, use your sunscreen, okay? Use your sunscreen, especially your face, your ears, if your hair doesn't cover it up, your nose. I've got one on the top of my head. I got a sunburn when I was young, and I've got this like brown mark on my head. My dermatologist checks it every year too. I'm worried about it. My dad's a farmer. He's always out on the tractor in the sun. He's had all these little skin cancer things cut off his face. Wear your big straw hat. Okay? I know everybody wants to have the healthy glow at the beach. Spring break, everybody wants to come back and be like, look at my status symbol. I took a spring break to Florida or the Bahamas and you didn't. Okay? Tanning wasn't popular among wealthy people until people started taking vacations in the French Riviera. Before that, tanning was considered like, oh, you're tan? Get away from me, peasant. Because only peasants work in the sun. Okay? And a lot of that depends on the culture in the world. I know like Japanese women are very sensitive about the sun. Tanning's a relatively new thing that, most people thought was crazy until about 100 years ago. All right. Not listed up here, but other things you can do. When you're young, it's not a big deal. But when you start to get my age, you got to get your screenings. There's blood tests they can do for prostate cancer. Your doctor's going to make sure check your skin when you go. There's like a set of rules for that called the ABCD rules. If your moles change, you need to get them checked out. Women, you need to get your annual GYN and you start getting mammograms and things like that. After you're 50, I think you start getting colonoscopy. I haven't got to that birthday yet. But there are a lot of people out there who I never go to the doctor. And then I don't feel good. Oh, you have stage 4 cancer. You have 6 months to live. It does happen, okay? And you hear these horror stories of these people who are like, this would have been preventable if you would have been getting your annual checkups and things like that. So please take care of yourself, okay? It's a big day politically. One of the big issues is health care. If we get rid of these things and we find them before they're too late, it saves society a lot of money, okay? It's cheaper to go scrape off a piece of skin cancer than it is for it to go through your whole body, okay? So a lot of that is, we say it's political, but it's societal too, okay? All right. These are the ones I just talked about, okay? Keep track of your family history and get your screenings, okay? Yes. That's a doctor question. I would say non-smoking is always good. That's yeah, you can. Lung cancer is not like only smokers, okay? Yes. Usually when you go to the doctor for the first time, you fill out this massive questionnaire about family histories and things like that. All right. Let's go ahead and stop the recording, and we'll